Right now, you're probably watching this on your phone, or maybe your laptop. To you, it feels like you're just watching a live stream, but something else started moving the second you pressed play. Not the video, something much more valuable. And by the end of this video, you're going to realize you weren't just watching content. You were feeding a factory. Most of us think the product is obvious. There's a creator, there's a platform, there's a video, maybe an ad plays. Beforehand. End of story. That's the version we're all taught to see. And it's almost completely wrong. Because the moment you press play, the platform quietly begins collecting something invisible. Not your money. Not yet. Your attention. Every second you stay. Every scroll you stop. Every comment you leave. Tiny pieces of attention begin piling up like raw material on a conveyor belt. Which raises a strange question. If attention is the raw material, what exactly is the factory making? The obvious answer is advertising, and that's partly true. Platforms really do turn attention into ad revenue. Every view becomes another chance to show another ad, another impression, another tiny coin dropping into the machine. Simple enough. Except, the machine behind that coin is much larger than it looks. YouTube says it has paid creators more than $100 billion over the last 4 years, and creators receive 55% of eligible advertising revenue. Those numbers sound enormous, but they're also slightly misleading, because they quietly encourage you to believe advertising is the business. It's not. Advertising is just the front desk. Behind that tiny coin, there's an entire factory most viewers never notice. Think about it. If ads were really the whole business, why would successful creators build companies? Why hire lawyers, managers, accountants? Why set up offices instead of just buying a better webcam? That only makes sense. If the live stream isn't actually the finished product, it's just the beginning of something else. Which brings us to IShowSpeed. On screen, he looks like pure chaos. Barking, running, jumping over cars, screaming at football matches. The internet treats him like a human fireworks show. But here's what's interesting. Chaos can be engineered. Today, Speed has more than 55 million subscribers and nearly 9 billion lifetime views. Those numbers are difficult to picture. Imagine stacking every view like a box inside a warehouse. Eventually, the warehouse becomes a city. But huge audiences create another question. If millions of people are walking into the building every day, what happens after they get inside? Because every live stream, every clip, every outrageous moment doesn't simply disappear when you close the app. Imagine each stream landing on a conveyor belt. The stream keeps moving, even after you've stopped watching. And that's the part almost nobody sees. Inside the machine, that single moment begins to split. One copy becomes advertising. Another becomes clips. Another becomes sponsor inventory. Another becomes music. Another becomes products. The live stream didn't end. It multiplied. And that's when I realized something. Maybe the biggest creators aren't really making videos anymore. Maybe they're running factories. The first lane is the one everybody knows. Platform money. Ads, super chats, memberships. It's real money. At Speed's current pace, tens of millions of views every week can translate into millions of dollars a year. For most creators, this would already be the dream. But inside the factory, it's the smallest production line. Imagine trying to fill a swimming pool with a garden hose. That's advertising. Now imagine opening a fire hydrant. That's sponsorship. The strange thing isn't that sponsorships pay well. It's why they pay so much more. Because sponsors aren't buying views. They're buying borrowed attention. Think about what happens when Speed holds up a product. For a few seconds, That product becomes part of the moment. It isn't interrupting the entertainment, it is the entertainment, which means the sponsor didn't purchase an advertisement. They purchased a seat inside the factory. Now imagine it's not just a product, it's his own product. A drink, a snack, a piece of clothing. Suddenly, the economics change completely. Instead of renting out the audience, you're selling directly to it. The factory isn't producing advertisements anymore. It's producing customers. The same thing happens with music. Most people saw Speed's World Cup song and thought, oh, he released a track. But that's looking at the wrong end of the machine. The song wasn't just content. It became another product leaving the same factory. One live stream, another revenue stream. And this is where the building quietly changes. Up until now, everything we've talked about depends on the next upload. No stream, no money. But then a second floor appears, one that doesn't rely on tomorrow's live stream at all. Ownership. Not louder, just smarter. Public records reveal something fans almost never think to search for. Not another video. Not another sponsorship. A filing cabinet. Which sounds unbelievably boring, until you realize boring paperwork often hides the most valuable businesses. Open the drawer, and instead of finding one company, you find several. Separate folders, separate entities, separate purposes. Suddenly the creator doesn't look like a person anymore. He looks like an organization. And organizations don't think in uploads, they think in assets. Here's a detail that completely changed how I looked at this. Most people assume a record label owns the music. That's usually the story we've heard. But in Speed's case, the credits show something different. His company licenses music to the label. Read that sentence again. The music starts with him. The label helps distribute it. Ownership stayed much closer to the creator than most people realize. That's the moment the whole machine flips upside down. Instead of creating something and giving it away, the factory creates something, keeps ownership, licenses access, lets somebody else distribute it, and the value keeps flowing back. That's a completely different business. And once you see that, you start wondering how many other creators are quietly building the exact same machine. One of those companies is built for touring, which might sound ordinary, until you realize touring used to be something musicians did. Now internet creators are filling stadiums. A live stream isn't confined to a screen anymore. It spills into the real world. And every new business adds another production line to the factory. Then there's the company nobody can fully explain yet, the ventures arm. Outside the paperwork, there isn't much to see. And that's usually how these things work. The most valuable parts of a business often look unfinished right before they become obvious. Think of it like a construction site. You don't know what the building is until the walls go up. Step back, and Speed stops looking unusual. Across the internet, other creators are building similar factories. Some are small, some are enormous. They're all starting with the same raw material. Attention. The only difference is what they build with it. The clearest example is MrBeast. Most people think he's the biggest YouTuber. That's true, but it also misses the point. He's no longer just making videos. Videos are simply the front door. Behind them sits an entire ecosystem of products, snacks, games, merchandise, media businesses, and investments. Reports estimate Beast Industries generated hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue. The videos aren't the destination anymore, they're customer acquisition. Dude Perfect took another route. Instead of building everything alone, they brought in outside investment, not to improve the videos, to build a sports media company around them. Notice what's happening. Nobody is trying to become a better YouTuber. They're trying to become something much bigger. Now compare that with someone like Cenat, one of the biggest live streamers in the world. Massive influence, massive audience. But publicly, most of what we can see still lives on the platform itself, which shows something interesting. Audience size and business structure aren't the same thing. Two creators can have similar attention and completely different factories behind it. That's where speed seems to be today, past pure streaming. Not yet a fully diversified media empire, somewhere in between, still climbing, which makes him one of the most interesting creators to study. Because you're watching the machine being built, instead of looking back after it's finished. But every factory has warning lights. And this one is no different. The larger the machine becomes, the more expensive every mistake gets. Attention is powerful. It's also unpredictable. Speed has experienced that firsthand. Suspensions, game publisher conflicts, sponsors walking away, moments that instantly become global headlines. The same internet that can make someone famous overnight can also freeze the machine just as quickly, which reveals something uncomfortable. This business isn't built on stability. It's built on volatility. Think about what makes speed. Speed. The unpredictability. The moments nobody could have scripted. The chaos. That's exactly what millions of people show up to watch. But here's the catch. The thing that makes the factory valuable is also the thing that makes it fragile. It's like asking someone to walk a tightrope while carrying the entire business on their shoulders. The audience wants surprise. Investors want predictability. Those two things don't always get along. Let's go back to a single live stream. One joke, one scream, one unbelievable moment. To you, it lasts maybe 15 seconds. Then it's over, except inside the factory, that's when the work actually begins. That one moment doesn't stay in one place. It breaks apart. One clip ends up on TikTok, another becomes a YouTube short. Someone turns it into a meme. A sponsor reposts it. A fan makes an edit. The algorithm recommends it again. The stream doesn't end. It starts multiplying, like one spark landing in dry grass. That's why the biggest creators don't actually need perfect videos. They need unforgettable moments. Because one unforgettable second can produce hundreds of smaller pieces of content, and every one of those pieces becomes another doorway, leading people back into the same factory. The internet isn't built around episodes anymore, it's built around moments. That's also why creators like Speed travel so much. One trip through Africa generated millions upon millions of hours watched. Streams in places like Indonesia pulled audiences that rival major television broadcasts. It stops feeling like a YouTube channel. It starts feeling like global infrastructure. Attention moving across continents. Imagine every phone watching that stream as a tiny light. Now, zoom out. Those lights become cities, then countries, then an entire planet glowing at once. That's not just an audience. It's one of the largest concentrations of human attention on Earth. And attention is the fuel this factory runs on. Now follow that fuel. It doesn't disappear when the stream ends. It flows into companies, into products, into music, into tours, into licensing deals, into businesses that continue working long after the live stream is over. That's why attention is so valuable. It can be transformed again and again and again. Which brings us back to you. Remember the person sitting alone, watching a stream on their phone? It felt passive, like entertainment, nothing more. But now there's a line connecting you to everything you've just seen. Because there always was. You just couldn't see it. Now imagine following that line. It becomes a conveyor belt. Every click, every share, every comment, every laugh moves quietly through the same machine. You weren't paying with money. You were paying with attention. And attention turned out to be the most valuable currency in the building. None of this makes streaming fake or manipulative. It just makes it visible. Once you understand how attention moves, you stop seeing creators as people uploading videos. You start seeing systems, factories, supply chains, entire businesses hiding behind personalities. And once you see the machine, it's surprisingly difficult to unsee it. So, was IShowSpeed really the story? Not quite. He's one of the best windows into something much larger, because this was never really about one creator. It was about what creators are becoming. We keep saying people like Speed are building audiences, but that isn't quite true anymore. They're building factories. Factories that turn attention into products. Products into companies. Companies into ownership. And the strangest part is, the factory never asked you to buy anything. It only asked you to look. Because somewhere along the way, attention quietly became the most valuable product on the internet. And most of us still think we're just watching videos.